Get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Ruger-Morowski. I am the Associate Director of Partnerships at Parker Dewey. Very excited to talk to you today about what micro-internships are, if you're not already familiar, and how you can take the initiative to reach out to employers to create your own opportunities. Now, I know we've probably got some different levels of familiarity in the room, so that's why we are going to go ahead and start by talking a little bit about challenges, so we can then talk about exactly what micro-internships are and how they help address. So we do have the poll open. If you haven't already filled that out, we'd love to know your responses. But we have this poll open and we have these challenges from these different students on the screen. So you can take solace in the fact that whatever challenge you're experiencing, and if it's one that's not in the poll or on the screen, please feel free to highlight it in the chat. It's something that we have seen before and that micro-internships can help with. So on the screen, you see some folks who are saying, well, I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to jump right into a full semester long commitment. Micro-internships are short term. They're a nice way to test things out. For those of you who just have wild schedules, maybe you're a student athlete, maybe you have family obligations, maybe you already have a job. This is something that can fit even to the most busy schedules. Maybe you're looking for opportunities and the only ones you're seeing are unpaid. I see 50% of you have already identified, I can't take an unpaid internship. That's not going to work with the whole budget thing. Every single Parker Dewey micro-internship is paid. You're compensated for the time you spent working on things. Maybe you're just looking for opportunities to explore, don't know what to do. That's about a quarter of you in the poll so far. Again, this is a great way to explore. And if you're just struggling to get that first experience, I know some of you, it looks like a lot of you have said, I've been applying to opportunities. I'm not getting selected for things. This can be a good way to make yourself a more appealing candidate for more opportunities. So that brings us to, okay, what is exactly these micro-internships that can help me do all these things? These are short-term, paid professional projects. So digging a little bit deeper into each of those, when we say short-term, we mean it. So we know there are a lot of folks in the room with busy schedules. Looks like 11% of you said that today is a particular challenge. So if you don't have time for a traditional internship, these projects that are 10 to 40 hours in total tend to work really well. The vast majority of these micro-internships are also remote and they have kind of flexible scheduling. So what that means is they're focused on a specific project. So you're going to work on that project wherever you have a Wi-Fi connection, and you're going to, for the most part, work on it when you have time, as long as you're meeting a deadline. Now, you will connect with a professional at the company that has the project need, so you're expanding your network and you're getting to know that person, but it's usually only a few check-ins along the way. When you're working on it and where you're working on it, up to you for the most part, other than those check-ins. So it works really well for busy schedules. Again, every single micro-internship is paid. We know a lot of you can't afford to spend your time on something if it's not. And these aren't simulations, these aren't hypotheticals. Micro-internships are real projects with real companies. So it makes sense that you get paid real money for your real work. These projects are also professional. So our definition of professional is they're using skills or knowledge that you're going to be earning in your degree programs. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to have a whole degree under your belt. Micro-internships are open to all grade levels. That includes everyone from first-year students to doctoral level students. Just make sure that you're applying for projects that are appropriate for the skills you do have. So skills that are going to be taught in classrooms. So for example, if a company posts, I just want someone to stand at an event and hand out a flyer, we're not going to allow that to be posted. But if they want someone to design a flyer, that's something you may be able to be doing as a first or second year student, or any other grade level for that matter. We see these projects across all different types of industries, all different types of departments, sales, marketing, HR, finance, what have you. That stated, there are some areas that we tend to see more in than others, and some of you here in the room may have some niche interests. You may have your eye on a company or an industry, and you keep logging into Parker Dewey, and you're going, there's nothing for me here. You are in the right place today, because this is where we're going to talk about how you can take the initiative to make more projects that align with your interests appear. So hopefully these benefits were clear when I was describing what micro-internships are, but the accessibility of it being remote, it's real experience. Regardless of what company you're working with, you'll get to add this to your resume, but you'll add it as an independent contractor or an independent consultant of Parker Dewey. Because whether you're working with a big Fortune 500 company or the local florist down the street, we are technically the employer of record. When you get paid by Parker Dewey. So that's why it'll appear that way on your resume and on your LinkedIn, anywhere else you're detailing your work history. The flexibility tends to be huge for those with busy schedules. Again, you're connecting with a real professional, so expanding your network. For those of you who don't know what you want to do, it's a succinct way to try these different careers and companies. And a number of companies are using micro-internships as a recruiting tool. So what that means is they're using this short-term project as kind of a test to see, a paid test, by the way, would this person be a good fit for my traditional internship, for my full-time role, for my fellowship, whatever it is they've got coming up? So while it's not guaranteed, if you do a great job on your micro-internship, there may be a longer-term opportunity waiting on the other side. And I know I've mentioned it a couple times, but I keep mentioning because it's important. You get paid for the work that you do. So who can complete these micro-internships? Is it worth you hanging out for the rest of the call? You do need to be 18 or older, and these are open to students or recent graduates. Now, I often get questions about the recent graduates part, what is the cutoff? And the intent of Parker Dewey is for folks to be able to launch their careers. So there is no set cutoff. But if you're already established, you've been in your first role for a while, unless you make it clear with your profile that you're trying to make some sort of a switch, your applications probably aren't going to get as much attention as someone who is still in school or hasn't landed in that first full-time role yet. Again, because companies might be looking for someone who's available to do a longer term role after their micro-internship. We often get a lot of questions about international students. Can they do micro-internships? And the answer is yes, with a little asterisk. It varies a little bit by school to school. So if you are an international student and you are interested in these micro-internships, connect with International Student Support Services at your institution. Typically, you can do them, but you still need to have the proper work authorization, and they're going to be able to walk you through your school's process. And we encourage you to do that before you start applying, so that way when you get selected, you are able to jump right into that process so you can keep things moving quickly. Micro-interns are also independent contractors of Parker Dewey. So what that means is really tax classification kind of thing. Instead of getting a W-2, if you earn above a certain threshold, if you make a good amount of money with micro-internships, you'll get something called a 1099 instead. Because micro-interns are independent contractors, that also means that undocumented students can do them because all you need is a valid ITIN number. I see the little celebration thing. Yes, I know that it can be really tough for undocumented students to find opportunities. This is a great way for you to start building experience. And we also have some programs. Now, I forgot to update the list on this page, but we've got an updated list on another screen. So if you are from some certain schools or states, you may actually have the ability to do micro-internships. Just like regular, you're going to get paid. But instead of the company being the one who pays Parker Dewey, who then pays you, the company doesn't have to pay anything. There's actually a program that is going to allow these companies to engage you at no cost to them. And again, you still get paid. So that's why it's good for you to be aware of these programs, because it allows you to kind of sweeten the deal, if you might say that, to encourage them to post projects. If you don't qualify for any of these programs we're going to talk about today, also not a problem. Companies love micro interns because it's a great way to access talent, see if they're a good fit for longer term roles. There are a whole bunch of benefits that typically make companies happy to fund their own projects. Oh, okay. So someone's sending a message, Nijimil. Apologies if I mispronounced it. I'm going to go ahead and send you my direct email address. If you want to follow up on what you shared there, would love to know more. All right, so now that we've covered what micro-internships are, who can do them, all that good stuff, the rest of this webinar is going to be how you can create your own opportunities, professionally reach out to companies of interest, and get them to post projects for you. So, number one is going to be understanding those programs. Kind of gave you a teaser already. Next, we're going to talk about how to reach out to companies of interest. And we have tried to make this as easy for you as possible. We have templates, we have resources. We're going to walk you step by step. So start thinking now, if you haven't seen projects that interest you on the platform, what industries are you interested in? If there are any specific companies you're interested in, if you want to be my example for today, we will actually do your request. We can do one or two of those. So start thinking for once we get to that section. And then we'll just do a quick reminder of best practices for once they post that project, so you can get your application in, get selected. And if you're the one that's reaching out to them, chances are they're going to pick you, but you don't want to slack off at that stage. So Here's that section where we're going to talk about those program opportunities. And again, a program is something where there is some external source of funding. It could be a grant, it could be a foundation, it could be an organization, whatever it is. And they are saying to some subset of employers, hey, do you want to engage students in a micro-internship? We'll pay them for you. It's a really cool thing. So the programs that we have here, I'm going to give you an overview. While I'm giving you a brief overview, I'm going to launch another poll, and this is about eligibility. So as I'm going through this, if you realize, oh, I'm a student in Florida, I attend a Florida school, something like that, please indicate in the poll which of these programs you qualify for. So if we have some programs that nobody qualifies for, I'm not going to spend time on them live today, but want to make sure we hit the ones that people do qualify for. And again, if you don't qualify for any of these, not a problem. I see a lot of you have already hit none of the above. That is not an issue whatsoever. Okay, so the overview. The first one is the DeLuca program. So the DeLuca Foundation said, hey, we really want there to be more of these opportunities. We've got ties to the states of Florida and Connecticut. I know, kind of random. So they have made it so companies can engage students from schools in those states, and the DeLuca program is going to pay for it. That program is also available to students from any historically Black college or university, any HBCU, and students from select Hispanic serving institutions. And when I say select Hispanic serving institutions, those are members of the HSI Career Collaborative. Now, some of you may be from HSI Career, that's a bit of a tongue twister, y'all, HSI Career Collaborative schools, and you may not know it. So thank you for the laugh. I'm trying my best, and the cold makes it hard too. Anyway, what I'm going to encourage you to do is go to this link that is in the chat and take a look at all the schools in this list, all the ones you see scrolling on the left. If your institution is on this list, that means you are at an HSI Career Collaborative, I'm getting better, y'all, institution. So go ahead and indicate that in the poll. The next program up is the Kansas program. This is for students who are attending a public, and it does need to be a public school in Kansas. This includes four-year institutions and community colleges. They just need to be a public Kansas school. And this one is only open to undergraduate students. So this is one of the rare programs where recent graduates need not apply for this one in particular. You could still do micro-internships in general. You just won't be able to access those funded ones. Now, to be clear, all micro-internships are paid. When I say funded, I mean they're funded by a program. So the next program you might qualify for is the Indiana Economic Development Corporation program. Also a tongue twister. For some reason, I'm better at that one. So if you are attending any higher education institution in Indiana, so you're a current student, recent graduate, you can apply for that one. Let us know about that one in the chat. And then we actually have a couple of school-specific programs. These aren't statewide or anything like that. They are actually for just specific institutions. We've got two available right now. So if you happen to be from Northern Virginia Community College or from the Freeman College of, I think it's actually management, I apologize, Freeman College of Management at Bucknell University, there is a program specifically for your institution. So we can cover that because it looks like two of the folks in the room are from those institutions. Okay, so we do have someone in the room who is eligible for DeLuca. So just to go a little bit deeper, again, this is open to any students or recent graduates of a Florida school, a Connecticut school, an HBCU, or an HSI Career Collaborative institution. Our person in the room who qualifies looks like they're from an HBCU. So what this is for companies with large-scale recruiting needs. We're really encouraging these companies to use this as a pipeline entry, a way to get you, students from these populations, to start learning about their company, building relationships that can lead to longer-term roles. So that's why it's limited to larger companies. We want to make sure it's companies that conceivably have open roles after you do the micro-internship, because the goal is to get you a longer-term opportunity. These projects are 15 hours total in scale. So these stipulations are set by the grant. They're always going to be 15 hours. They can be any type of company as long as they have large scale recruiting needs. So that is any industry. And you, the micro intern, assuming you reach out, you get these projects posted, you get selected, you will earn $300 for each of these 15-hour projects you complete. And again, the companies who are getting the support, they don't have to be the ones to pay you. The DeLuca program pays you. So it's really a sweet deal for these companies that want to engage you. This is going to be going through May of this year or until funding runs out. So right now is a perfect time for that person in the room who's from an HBCU to reach out to companies of interest. The next program is Kansas. Sadly, I don't think we've got anyone from Kansas in the room today, and it doesn't look like we have any Indiana folks today, so we're going to keep it moving. But again, no program, no problem. Companies are happy to pay for micro-internships because it's cost effective. They don't have to commit right away if they want to give you a shot, but they're not totally sure that you're the right fit. You get the chance to prove your stuff. Some companies might just be using it as a way to get some additional help, and this is an effective way to do that. Or they're role auditioning, they're building their pipeline. They just want students to know who they are, so they're using projects to get their name out there. Or they just want to access some of you who, because of transportation, because of time constraints, because of whatever other reasons, they're missing with traditional recruiting efforts. Y'all are some amazing talent in the room. Give yourself some pats on the back. Y'all are getting your degrees, you're working hard. But if you can't make it to the career fair, you can't make it to their info session, you don't have time for their traditional internship, these companies are missing out on you. So micro-internships are the way that you can say to them, hey, I have some great talent. I've got some skills that I want to put to work for your organization. And this micro-internship is how you can give me the shot I need to prove that even though I may not have been able to go to those other things or done your traditional internship, you should give me a shot. All right. So also want to give a little bit of a statistic here because some of you may be thinking, okay, well, what if I'm not that confident? Like, I know I'm in school, I know I've got skills, but I just don't know if I have that confidence to reach out. So a little statistic for you from the Strata Education Foundation. 87% of employers fill internship slots informally, such as through outreach from a student. Now, they worded that kind of clunkily, but what they're saying is 87% of employers at one point have hired someone not because they went through a traditional process and they posted it and someone they'd never heard of before applied and they went through all the traditional process stuff. It happened because a student maybe came up to them and said, hey, I'm really interested in your company. Are there any opportunities? With that high of a percentage of internship opportunities coming from these informal kind of outreach things, that's exactly why you need to be reaching out, especially about micro-internships, if for some reason traditional internships aren't accessible to you right now. But to reach out, you need two things. You need someone that you're reaching out to, and you need a message. So that's what we're going to be focusing on here. So that first part, who do we reach out to? There are a few options. Will we get access to those templates? Heck yeah, you'll get access to those templates. In fact, you don't even have to wait. If you want to start looking ahead, these are the templates right here. So you can start kind of perusing. We're going to be using them during the session, and they will be sent out to you afterwards too. So some of you may actually already have some existing contacts that would be great to reach out to about posting micro-internships for you. And you might not think of them at first thought, so want you to dig a little bit deeper and reflect on some of the places you may have met some great contacts. So think about if you were able to make it to the career fair. Did you make some great connections there, really vibed with someone, but they didn't have an opportunity that was a good fit for you at that time? Maybe an ideal person to ask about a micro-internship. Do you have relationships with an alum or a mentor that often has projects? Maybe they're in your industry of interest. Another great choice. Connections you've made on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great place to keep track of professional connections that you've made. So if you already have a LinkedIn account, go in, take a look at your connections. In LinkedIn, you're going to see that. Actually, I'm going to open a new LinkedIn window here. If you already have an account, come on, LinkedIn, you can move a little faster than this. It normally does, folks. To be clear, we are Parker Dewey. So if Parker Dewey platform is slow today, that's on us. We may be doing some updates, but the slowness you're seeing right now, that is totally on LinkedIn. We'll come back to LinkedIn in a second, and I'll show you where the network is so you can look at your connections. Or maybe someone that Career Services has brought in. Maybe you went to a networking event on campus. Maybe you had a professional come and talk to your class. These are all examples of existing contacts you might decide to reach out to. LinkedIn, we're still not there. Okay. Oh, there we go. So as far as LinkedIn goes, you'll go to this My Network section. And this is where you can remind yourself, okay, what connections do I have? So just kind of look through the list. Now, as students, I don't expect you to have nearly 3,000. You may only have a few, and that's fine, but just kind of take a look through, see if any of them might be a good fit for asking about a micro internship. If you are thinking, okay, nice list, but I don't have any of those contacts. We've already talked about it, lady. I wasn't able to go to the career fair. Then we can help you find contacts. And that's what a good chunk of today's presentation is. So we're going to talk about how to do this in two ways. One is through LinkedIn. Fingers crossed, it moves a little bit quicker than it just was. And the other is going to be through Handshake. A lot of you have probably had Handshake promoted to you by your school. But want to throw out there, even if you're not at a Handshake institution, if you have a .edu address, unless they've changed something, you should still be able to access a free version of Handshake. Now, if for some reason you have a different platform you've been encouraged to use at your school, the tips we're going to cover for the above are going to work for most career-oriented types platforms. So don't think, oh, I can only do this on LinkedIn, I can only do this on Handshake. Those are just the most common ones for college-age students, so that's why we're going to be focusing on them today. Before we actually dig in, a quick note, though, about both of these. Make sure your profile is complete and up to date. So I'm going to put some tips. Just a quick spoiler, putting that photo with your dog is not necessarily recommended unless you are interested in like veterinary sciences or things like that. Here are some tips for keeping a profile up to date, making sure it's professional, all that good stuff, because these are going to be attached when you reach out on LinkedIn, when you reach out on Handshake. They're probably going to click on your profile, and you want to make sure that they are seeing up-to-date, appealing, professional information when they get there. So that covered, we are now going to start talking about how do we find people on LinkedIn? How do we find connections? So there are a couple of different ways to go about this. I'm going to go ahead and start from this homepage here on LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn account, this is a great time. Log in, follow along. And this is also that time I was encouraging y'all to prepare for. I'm looking for some audience participation. Does anyone have a dream company, a company that you would love to work with, that you would love to do a micro internship for? Throw those company names in the chat. We're going to show you how to find a point of contact at that company. Now, I'll make something up if we don't see. Oh, perfect. We've already got a suggestion. I'm not familiar with this one. fwd.us. I'm going to put an FWD because I'm not, is it the insurance company? Do I have that right? I'm going to go ahead and assume it's the insurance company or immigration. Okay. FWD, I'm just going to look up fwd.edu and see, or not edu, it's .us. I don't know where that would have taken me. Hold on. Okay, so now I know what I'm looking for. fwd.us. Okay, perfect. So it comes up as a public policy office. So what you just saw me do, folks, is also a good tip. Sometimes when you first put it in, like there was an insurance company that probably has more employees, a little bit bigger, and it came up first. If you are not sure what the branding for the company you're interested in looks like, go to their website. It's going to help you be able to find them. You could also use filters for companies to find what industry they're in. So once you found the company, you're going to go ahead and click on them. And you are going to be able to see right here that they have a number of employees. And what you're going to do is you are going to click on this. And this is going to show you typically at the top if you already know anyone at that company, because the people you know, if you didn't already think of them earlier, are going to be the best people you reach out to. Now, in this case, I do not have any connections with this company. That's not surprising to me. I was not familiar with them before. So what this is telling me, though, is that I know someone who knows someone at this company. That's what that second means, that I'm two people removed. I know someone who knows someone. So that's what this third means, or third plus. That's a little bit farther out, that I know someone who knows someone who knows someone. I don't know if people are still doing that 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever, but if you have any idea what I just said, it's kind of like that. Now, typically, if it's third plus, you're not going to try and get through that chain of people. But if you do have someone who is a second, what you might consider doing is reaching out to that connection who knows someone and says, hey, I see you know someone that works at this company. Would you be willing to introduce me? So that's the first thing that I would recommend trying. If you do not know anyone, then you might want to go into this all filters, and we might start searching for some people based on some different criteria that usually are an indication of how willing they might be to help us out. So one of the things that I recommend first is looking at the school. Now, I also want to clarify before we get deep into these filters, they're not going to return something every time. So sometimes I'm going to do things, it's going to say 0 results. We're going to go back to the drawing board, but that's exactly why I do this live. It's not always going to be a super easy, polished, we plan this out ahead search. So I'm going to give you all some different options if you run into roadblocks. So the first thing I would recommend doing is filtering for your school. So let's say you attend American University and you want to see, is there anyone from my alma mater, from my current school that works there? You can hit that show results, and it's going to show you 3 people that work there. Now, if any of those people have roles in areas that are of interest to you, those are folks that would be great to start with if you don't already know someone or know someone who knows someone. So what you would do, for example, if we were like, okay, I want to be a designer at this institution. This is perfect. This is someone that would be great to connect with. You're going to open this, and then you are going to go to connect, and it's going to ask you, unless it's changed something, if you want to send with a note. I would highly recommend sending with a note. The note is going to be important. Otherwise, they're not likely to accept your LinkedIn message. Now, the challenge here is 1, you are limited to 5 personalized invitations a month. So make these count. The other challenge is we're limited to 200 characters. That is not a lot of characters. So that's where these templates come in. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break from LinkedIn to talk to you about these templates. You may have already been looking over them since they were in the chat, but if you weren't, here they are again. They will be coming back to you via email after this as well. So these are our employer engagement templates. And the goal of these templates is to help you reach out to these people you find on LinkedIn, you find on Handshake that you do your research about, and encourage them to post a micro-internship for you. So that way you can do it quickly, you can do it effectively, you can do it professionally, and you can do it with confidence. So how you're going to use these templates, basically the first step is figure out which one of these is relevant to you. So that's why we talked about these programs earlier. So for example, the person in the room who's from an HBCU, you're going to click on the DeLuca program. It's going to bring you a template so you can highlight the DeLuca program to the person that you're reaching out to. For the people in the room who said you are able to see, it didn't update a school-specific one. I'm going to update this real quick. Hold on one second. School-specific programs. So when it updates, you're going to see school-specific programs, and it is going to take you there. It's going to take it just a few seconds to update. Sorry, I updated this morning, and it looks like it didn't go through quite yet. But if you scroll down, this is where it will be. It just needs to be updated again. Give it just a little bit of time. And if you do not qualify for one of those programs, again, no problem. You're going to hit that none of the above, and it's going to take you to a template. We have 2 different types of templates. One is if you have the person's email address, whether you met them at a fair, they came to your class, whatever way occurred that you actually have an email contact for them. So this is going to be a little bit longer. This is going to say professional greeting. If you've met them before, you're going to remind them how you met them or how you found them, whatever it may be. You're going to let them know a little bit about you, what you're interested in, and then you might highlight if you can't do a traditional internship, what the reasons why. Maybe you don't see any opportunities posted. If you're going to say this, make sure you check. Maybe their only opportunities are unpaid, boo, but maybe they're still a great company with just a tiny budget. We just don't like unpaid internships, but maybe that's the case and you can't afford an unpaid internship. Micro-internships are much shorter. They can typically make that fit in the budget. Maybe they are not in your geographic area. You really want to do a micro-internship or get experience with a company in California and you're in Ohio. I'm in Ohio. That's not typically going to work out for a traditional internship, but it could for a micro-internship. Anyway, pick your reasons why you may not be able to do their traditional recruiting methods. And then you're going to get to the ask. I was wondering, would you consider posting a Parker Dewey micro-internship? It gives them a little bit of information about what these are, that it's accessible to you, but allows you to make a meaningful contribution to them. And it lets them know if they're interested in learning more. We have monthly webinars for employers. So they can come to one of these, ask questions, get examples, and hopefully take that next step to post a project for you. And if they already have things on their mind, they can go post a project at this moment. And it's basically just giving them everything they need to get the ball rolling and post those projects. Now, on the other side, you'll see we also have LinkedIn templates. So these are templates that are designed to be used on LinkedIn because on LinkedIn, again, you have much shorter character space. So what you would do is take this, copy it. You're going to pop over to this invitation. I know it took us a while to get back to LinkedIn, but we're here now. Paste it in, and then you are going to customize this template. So you are going to double check that you're spelling it right. I think this was in the example. I'm very interested in fwd.us. Again, if you were actually sending, you would double check, not what I'm doing right now. Would you consider posting a short-term professional project for put in your major, international studies, just for an example. And then you put the link. And the reason this is so short and there's not a lot of detail is because some of y'all have some really long major names, but we have actually set this up to fit within that 200 character limit. And then you are going to hit send. Now I see someone has their hand up. We are going to have time for hand up questions at the end, but in the meantime, if you want to put your question in the chat, happy to answer it as we're going along, so you won't have to wait if it's in the chat. So once you send that out, that is how you are going to reach out to people that you are finding on LinkedIn. Now, we had some good luck with seeing that, oh, there are some people that work at the company that happen to also have attended my school. But again, that's not going to be the case every time. So you may be wondering, well, what do I do if I can't find anyone that works at my school? So we're going to go to all filters. We're going to forget the school one. Say that's not an option. Something else that you might do is use this keyword. And you can use this in a couple of different ways. So what you might start with is recruiter. See if there's anyone there that works in recruiting. And like I said, sometimes you're not going to get a hit. And this is why we're going to try different things. If recruiter doesn't pull anything up, they might just have a different term for the folks who work in recruiting or HR there. So you might try talent. A lot of times folks are going to be called, talent acquisition specialists, things like that. In this case, still not pulling anything up. That's still okay. You might try someone in human resources. Now, this still may not pull anything up. Let's see. And it still didn't, and that's okay. In that case, what you're going to want to do is put in a title that is relevant to the types of projects or the industry area that you would want to do in that company. Now, there are lots of different titles for the same types of roles. So if, for example, you might be applying somewhere that the same job, it's a graphic designer. Some company might call it a design specialist. Another company might call it a graphics not entrepreneur, a graphics aficionado. People sometimes get fancy with the job titles. So what you're going to want to do if it gets to this point and you're like, I'm trying to connect directly with someone who works in the area, I haven't been able to find anyone in like an HR type of program, is you're then going to backtrack a little bit and you're going to go back to the page of the company that we were looking at. Boom, boom, here we go. And we're going to go back to this employees list. And you're going to kind of scroll through and take a look and see what titles sound like the department that you would want to be in. So we've got a lot of director levels here, but here's an example, multimedia producer. So if you know, for example, you're interested in multimedia or maybe you're interested in strategy, this is where we can go back and say, okay, I know they use terms like strategist. That would be aligned with what I want to be doing. So show me all the folks that have strategist in the title. And then you're going to see the campaign strategist, the digital campaign strategist, and these might be people to reach out to. Now, again, if this was actually me using my LinkedIn, I would say Diego is my guy because I have a mutual connection. I can even reach out to Ryan and say, hey, Ryan, I'm really interested in fwd.us. Could you please introduce me to Diego? But if I don't have a connection, let's say Yvonne was the only person that popped up, I'm then going to open up Yvonne's profile. I'm going to look at it a little bit, make sure that they do indeed still work there, look a little bit about their history, make sure that what they do seems to be in line with what I want to do. And then I'm going to hit that more. I'm going to hit connect, and I'm going to add that note to get that conversation started. So I know that I have been doing a lot of talking and it is a one-sided webinar, so that makes sense. But I also want to take this time to remind folks, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put those in the chat. Now, the next scenario I want to cover, I'm going to be looking for participation again, is what if you know you have an industry of interest, but you don't know a specific company? You're not targeting a company, but you want to find companies in a specific area. So this is where I am going to ask for someone to put their industry of interest. These are things like finance, marketing, what have you. And we're going to find companies just based on an industry. So this is the participation point. I'm going to take a sip of coffee while I wait for the chat. Short sip of coffee. All right, Carolina, thank you. Carolina did respond, y'all. She just didn't host some panelists, and that's why you can't see it. But it says marketing. So I'm going to want a little bit of more information, Carolina. Do you have a particular state or multiple states you'd be interested in working in after graduation? Texas, perfect. So what you're going to do at this point, folks, is you are going to go to this homepage. And sometimes something I don't love about LinkedIn is it can be a little hard to find the company thing. So what I would do is maybe just put in anything here, and then it's going to show you these little options for these different areas, and then you can click companies. So even if that wasn't the company you wanted, just clicking companies is going to get you that company filter. And then you're going to get this nice little URL here. Take that question mark, get rid of everything past the question mark. And that is going to take you now just to the straight up, we're searching for companies page. And this is where we get an opportunity to filter for industry. Now, marketing is an interesting one because there are lots of companies that they are marketing companies. That is the industry of the company. But with marketing, what's also the case is most companies, regardless of whether they're technically a marketing company or not, are going to have a marketing department. So what we're going to be looking at right now is just companies where that is what they do. They do marketing. But I bring this up to say that if you're interested in something like marketing, where yes, there are marketing companies, but also every company has a marketing department, you can also be a little bit more open. And instead of doing an industry filter, you could really just focus on, I want to be in this city. I know I want to be in a mid to small size company because that's where I feel comfortable, and do the search in that way. But we're going to start by industry first. So if you put in marketing, you're going to see there are preloaded ones here in LinkedIn. And this is an example again of where things may come up or they may not. You may have to reword things a little bit. And this is where the internet is your friend. You know, you Google, what are other words for marketing? Now, we didn't have to do that here, but what are other words for the industry I'm interested in? So the person who said CAD designer, for example, that is not coming up. So the interest or the industry of CAD, well, not the industry of CAD, but CAD is more of a thing you do in a greater industry. So you could, great example, you could do technology. So you're going to find different things. Or if you're specifically in the design element, you could look for specific types of design. CAD is often a step when you're designing a product. So you could search for product design. I'm not saying it's definitely going to bring anything up, but that's how you're going to go through and look for different things. So if you're interested in designing personal care products or whatever it may be, you can then play with the different industry filters. Again, we're going to go ahead and just stick with the marketing one for now. Let me make sure I actually had that selected. So marketing services, yes, show results. And then we also know that Carolina is interested in companies in Texas. So we're going to go over here to this filter. We're going to add a location. Now you can even get as specific as a city if you want to. Wherever you can go broader, if your needs will allow, I encourage you to go broader. But we're going to go with Texas as a whole state. It's a big one, so that leaves it pretty broad, but you could get more specific. You can even say, like I gave the example of, I know I want to work in a mid-sized company, or I know I want to work in a big old company. Big old company benefits work well for me, whatever you are looking for. You could even filter it to say, only show me companies where I know people that work there, but we're going to go a little bit broader than that. So we're going to go show results, and this is where you start broad, but then you can always get smaller because you can see there are 4,800 results for Texas-based marketing services companies. So Caroline, I'm going to ask for some more information because we only get those 5 personalized LinkedIn requests, so we're going to filter it down a little bit more. Do you have any idea, and it's okay if not, what kind of company size you'd like to work for, or ideally what city you'd like to be in? Carolina's got their answer ready, Austin. So this is where you can go back and you can even put in a specific state. So Austin, Texas, metropolitan area. You can also put in, sometimes you'll notice they have this particular state and sometimes they have an area. I would recommend starting with both. And then you can always get more specific. Sorry, it didn't actually add the metropolitan area, so let me do that too. The metropolitan area is just going to include those suburbs. Now, I'm not from Texas, so I apologize. I don't know the suburbs around Austin, but I am in Cleveland. But technically, I'm in Parma. But I would be able to go to a job in Cleveland, no problem. It's literally 15 minutes away. So when we say metropolitan area, it's including those suburbs. So including the Parmas to the Clevelands, including the whatever the Austin suburbs are to the Austins. So that actually did not narrow it down. A lot of these companies, oh, I see it says about, are still there. So that's where you can continue getting even more and more granular. And you can start looking at some of the business models, things that particularly interest you. Now, wait a second. It is showing us companies that are not in the Austin area. So let's see for a second what's going on here. LinkedIn might be having a little bit of an off day, y'all. I'm going to refresh it real quick. Please stand by. And sometimes the technology is not going to be perfect. So this is why it's important to always kind of keep an eye on things. If things aren't looking right, well, I meant to do that in LinkedIn, not in my browser, then take a critical eye to it and kind of see what may be going on. So bear with me here for just a second. I'm going back to that company page. Again, I just put in gobbledygook to get there. We're now on the overall company page. I'm going to put in some of these filters. I'm going to do it in a different order to see if LinkedIn is still going to have trouble. So I'm going to go for, nope, Austin's not an industry. Austin. Let's just see what that does first. So I think some of what may be happening here too, because Austin has so many different industries, is some of these, even though they're headquartered in different places, are showing up because they have a presence in Austin. So that may be part of it. So we're seeing, I'm going to switch out the Austin, Texas metropolitan area and just show Austin. So it is filtering down, and I think that's what's happening here. So these are just examples of how you want to be critical. Some of these may have opportunities in those areas, but not actually be located in terms of their headquarters in Austin. And yes, I see the comment, oh, someone from Maple Heights. Hey, what up, Ohio? And also the comment, maybe unchecked Texas, another great example. The Texas companies also had a lot in there too. So I think we were at 4,800 before. So let's see now if we put in marketing services specifically in Austin. And that suggestion was a great one. Thank you, Carolina. So now we're down to 1,000 and you can just keep filtering in that way. And then it's going to be very similar. So just for the sake of time and example, let's say that you look at one's right side up. That's kind of a cool name. You check out what they're about and their overview, and you're like, oh, this company would be great. So what you can do, again, it's going to tell you if you have contacts there, but you can then go ahead and go to this People tab. And this is going to show you different folks where they live, some information, but then it's also going to take you down to some people you may know. And actually what you're going to do here is switch again to that number of employees. So I think it actually took a little minute for that to load, which is why I was struggling for a second. But this employees, just like when we started, is going to be here. And this is, again, where you're going to have those folks. You'll do that thing that we talked about before if you already know the company. And you're going to look for folks who either work in recruiting, HR, or in the segment of the business you'd be interested in. So let's just see for this one. They may not, they may, if anything comes up for recruiter or talent or HR. Now, this is a great example. I'm actually glad this came up because LinkedIn member without a profile photo that didn't even actually come up when I clicked on it, you're not going to want to reach out to that person. That is not a live LinkedIn profile. So what you can try then, the other options we spoke about, we can try talent. No options there. We can try human resources. And we have a hit. So you can open this person up. You can read a little bit about what they do. Now, this is also interesting too, because even though that company has that presence in Austin, you can see this person is in Denver. So we can actually go back to these filters and realize, okay, this company has presence in multiple states. I really want to focus on someone who is in Austin. So maybe we're going to filter by their location being in Austin. And again, I'm going to preemptively say nothing may show up. And we realize this isn't a good fit for that reason. But now we see which of these folks that work in that company are in Austin, and these might be good fits. So these are just a few examples. Again, we do this live because there is some having to think, rethink, check, recheck, and I want to walk you through the strategy of what this looks like when it comes to finding contacts. If there are any questions, concerns, folks who are like, I am doing this live as you are telling me, and I'm really struggling, please let me know. Happy to answer those questions. That's what this time is for. So we have talked about how to find contacts at LinkedIn. We've talked about how to filter, how to send them messages, the templates that you can use. Next, we are going to talk about how to do the same thing on Handshake. Now, it is very similar to what you saw on LinkedIn. So we're not going to spend as long here because it's essentially the same thing that we saw before, just on a different platform. So what you're going to do when you go into Handshake, it's probably going to look for you something like this. Thing seems a little small, so I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. And then you can hop over to this employers section. And this is where you can filter just like we did before. So just to give the same example, Austin, Texas. Now, sometimes you saw when I put a space after Austin, it was like, I've never heard of what you're talking about. We have to play with these things. So you can put in Austin, Texas. You could do a keyword search, or you could stick with marketing. You can even determine, again, the employer size. Then you can apply that filter. So very similarly, this is going to show you different types of companies. You can continue getting more granular with the filters. And then you can click into these and you'll be able to see some more information. Now, I see we've got a question. Can international students do this? Yes, but speak to International Student Services at your institution. They're going to be most familiar with the process required at your school to get the appropriate work authorization, and that is something you need to do micro-internships. So make sure you check with them first so you are ready when the time comes to do the micro-internships when you get selected. Now looking at this company, this is a smaller company, only 1 to 10 employees. So they may not have some of the things that other companies have, but there are a couple of places you'll look for contact information. One is people. And a nice thing that Handshake does is it tells you how long ago folks were active. So, if something says this person hasn't been active in a year, the chances of them reading your email are going to be pretty low. This person was active 2 months ago, so there's a good chance. You hit that message, and this is where you're going to go back to those Parker Dewey templates. This one, you've got more space. So I would use the email template, and you're going to reach out to them about that possibility. Now, another place you might look for is some companies will have a contact area. You can see they do not have that in this one. Some companies aren't going to have anybody listed under people. So let's look at another example. I'm going to go back into these filters because usually larger companies are going to have those types of things. And let's see, so Optimum Solar, that's a big company in Austin. Let's take a look. So they are going to have their overview, some jobs, some events. So they're an example. Actually, I would have thought the larger ones would have more. They don't have any people listed. So this is one where you might actually have to go back to LinkedIn now that you've identified them as a company of interest to find people. I'm going to go ahead now and open it up just because I want y'all to see an opportunity or an example of what a contact space looks like. Let me try this one right here. They've got their career websites, they've been posting, they've got lots of information, testimonials, they've got multiple people. They also do not have a separate kind of contact thing. So I will show you just in our slides what that kind of looks like. So I'm not wasting everyone's time trying to find one live. But this is where that might look like. So IBM was the example we had before. They might have a contact information. Let's see if they've updated or if they still have this. Stand by. I'm going to remove my filters. IBM. So it looks like we do have a little bit of reorganizing since the last time we did this, but they still have their people. And it looks like they've removed the contact information. So that's going to be your way through Handshake to look at the people because there is no longer a contact information. So I'm actually going to be updating these slides. All right, so we have talked about how to send a message using those templates. Now I also want to talk a little bit about why you're doing these steps on platforms that aren't Parker Dewey, when the whole goal is to get folks on Parker Dewey. And that's because the folks who are already on Parker Dewey, they're aware of micro-internships. They know how to use it. They understand the benefits. They're posting projects. It's actually, now this sounds big and scary, but it's just out there because we want the application process to be equitable. It's against our terms of service if a project is already posted for you to reach out to a company about it outside of the Parker Dewey platform. Now, the reason we have that there is mostly for safety. If the conversations before kickoff aren't taking place on Parker Dewey, we can't, confirm the safety or the validity of the communication, which is why we do that. But that's also to explain why you're only doing this and reaching out to companies if they're companies that aren't posting on Parker Dewey yet, because your goal is to get them to the platform to post these opportunities for you. Also want to take a quick moment to talk about the importance of following up. And we have following up messaging in these templates as well. So you can see here for the initial email, underneath, there is a follow-up template. Now, these folks are often very busy. That's why they could benefit from your project support. But that is to say, if they don't respond in one day, we don't want to send a follow-up yet. Give them a little bit of time. If it's been about a week, maybe a little over a week, that's when it's a good time to send them a quick follow-up. And again, we have a template that you can use to do so professionally and confidently. Now, with email or messages on Handshake, you can send a follow-up, no problem. There's nothing holding you back. On LinkedIn, it gets a little bit more complicated because once you've requested to connect and sent that note, you actually can't message them again unless they accept your request to connect. So this is where we just have to accept sometimes if they don't accept that request, if they don't respond, you may want to try to move on to someone else to find another opportunity. But you are all fabulous, persistent young professionals, so I have no doubts that you will do that. If they do respond to your request, however, even if they haven't responded, but they accepted your connection, then you can send them another message. And there's not quite the character limit on it anymore. So we've got a little bit more detail that you can share here, thanking them that they've accepted your invitation to connect, giving them a little bit more information about micro-internships, and again, encouraging them to take that next step to create an opportunity for you. If the company has questions, you get a response, yay, but they ask you something about micro-internships where you're like, I don't work there, I don't know. That's what we were here to help with. If you missed at the beginning, hi, I am Danielle. I am the Danielle of Danielle at Parker Dewey. Email me, be like, hey, this company is interested, but they've asked me XYZ and I don't know how to respond. Or you can encourage them to come to our monthly webinar that is also linked to in the templates that we are giving you to encourage them to come. But if folks are interested in posting micro-internships, this webinar is going to answer a lot of their questions. And they don't even need to wait for the next webinar. They can always check out the recording and slides at their leisure whenever it's convenient for them. So at this point, we've talked about how to find contacts, what to write to those contacts. And let's say somebody bit, they've posted a micro-internship, they've let you know. Now is the time to submit your application. Now, again, you're pretty much a shoo-in. You're the one that let them know about this. They're already impressed with your professionalism. You've got the skills related to their industry because it's the industry you chose to reach out to, but you still want to make sure that that fabulous impression is going to continue. So do not wait. As soon as they let you know that they have posted, get that application in. Next is submit a quality application. Make sure your profile is complete. You've uploaded. I combined updated and uploaded. Your resume. Make sure that when you respond to the question, why should we select you? You've given a thoughtful response and let them know when you've applied. Now, again, typically, if you're just applying for a micro-internship you find on the Parker Dewey platform, you didn't reach out to them first. You don't want to contact them elsewhere to say, hey, I applied. That is a violation of those terms and services for the reasons we described. But if you're the person that initially reached out to them and said, hey, would you consider posting this for me? You've already had an exchange. It is entirely appropriate for you to let them know, I'm so excited. I have applied. Please see my application on Parker Dewey. And then that final note here, keep applying. Now, again, If you've let them know, the chances that they're going to select you are pretty darn high. But there are other micro internships out there. So even if you're looking for a specific one that you know is going to be there because you prompted them to post it, keep looking at the other opportunities. And if you see ones that are of interest, apply. And don't get deterred if you've applied for a few but haven't been selected yet. What we tend to see for micro internships that you don't have a role in bringing to the platform is somewhere between 5 and 10 applications is where that likelihood of being selected really increases. So if you've applied for a handful and you haven't been selected, keep going. If you applied for more than 10 and you haven't been selected, that's usually an indication that there might be something we could do to improve your profile or your application responses. If that's the case, I would encourage you to come to our office hours. I think I have these on the next slide. Yes, I do. So we do individual profile reviews, response reviews. So please feel free to join us at those. The next are going to be on April 22nd, just to make sure you're putting your best foot forward out there. If you also want some resources for making sure your profile is in good shape, that you're answering those questions well, or if you just want an overview about applying in general, we also have other resources here. These are all either resources or events. Again, I will send the slides and recording to everyone afterwards, so you can just click on these links for details. So we're coming full circle now, because I know we only have 4 minutes left of our time. And these are, again, those folks who we saw at the beginning who are saying, I don't have time for a traditional internship, or I'm not getting selected. I need a way to get my foot in the door, or I'm only seeing unpaid opportunities, whatever it was. And you can read for yourself. I won't read them to you, but these quotes from micro interns who have highlighted how this model made it accessible and allowed them to really get started and launch their career. That's why we call y'all career launchers. So if you are inspired by reading other people's success stories, we do have a link here. Sometimes when I'm in presentation mode, it does not let me click it. But when you get the slides, you will be able to see it. Read how other students have used this. And again, make sure you're ready. If you don't already have an account, make sure that you create one. I have our page right here. Actually, that's not the one I want. I want this one. Make sure that you have an account. Make sure that your profile is ready. Here's the link to do so in the chat. Complete your profile. Make sure that you've got that resume, a personal statement, all that good stuff. Reach out to those companies of interest. That's what today's webinar was all about. Finding the contacts, sending the messages, creating your own opportunities in your industries of interest. And then as soon as those opportunities are out there, apply. And if you need additional resources or you have questions or things like that, we also do have a LinkedIn page. This is our Career Launcher LinkedIn page. It has resources, tips, reminders about events like this one. So also just encourage you to give that a follow so you can see some of the outcomes of micro internships, reminders about events. You can see perspective from other micro interns, just a highly recommended tool. And with that, folks, that is the end of the official presentation portion. We will have a couple minutes here for questions, but while I wait for any questions you may have, just want to say thanks so much for spending some time with us today. I hope that this was helpful, and hopefully we'll be writing some success stories about all of you very soon.